Hi, we're coming at you with a new Suicide Wid vid. This week, we're going to talk about a timely matter of how big news tends to affect widows. And my friend here and I, Pam, both have a lot of experience about Washington, D.C. And there was a lot of news this week in Washington, D.C. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about it today. Um, my name's Mel, and I lost my person Tim in November of 2019. I started out very conservative in the world. Throughout my career in NGOs, I turned very left, and then I've come back to center. And he was raised very left, and in his career in the Marines, he went pretty far right. And then at the end of his career there, he went pretty centrist as well. So that's what made me think about this topic for this week.
And I am Pamela. I lost my person Jeff also in November 2019. And similarly, we met on Capitol Hill. We both worked in DC, started our careers there. He stayed, he worked for Ron Makeley, a Republican. I worked for Jim Clyburn, a Democrat. The offices were next to each other, but we were made being on opposite sides of the aisle work, and actually spent 5 years of dating and 22 years of marriage work, even coming from opposite political views.
That's awesome. Yeah, and we're going to stay away from all the opinions and politics of this week, but Pam, I would just love to hear, you know, everything's going on and we all had tons of thoughts, but I would love to hear just kind of like that one nerdy thing, that you wish you could have called that brilliant mind and talked about that one thing on Wednesday.
I think watching what was happening in the Capitol, knowing that building as well as both of us did, having spent so much time, the thing I really missed having Jeff to talk about was what was happening to our country as we watched the events unfolding in that building, the legal maneuvering that was going on, the election that was still happening, the change in the majority in the Senate that happened in the midst of the chaos in the Capitol building, the reconvening later that night. Jeff was a brilliant policymaker, legislator, and I missed having him tell me, okay, this is what this office is probably doing behind the scenes right now. Um, yeah.
Uh, for mine, out of everything, and I mean, he was a retired infantry Marine officer. He was absolutely brilliant. He was loved the Republic. He was the kind of guy that had a pocket constitution. Um, but there's this thing called the Maginot Line, which is essentially after World War I, the French like overdid all of their lessons of trench warfare against the Germans. And they did all this fortification. They built these walls, they built these trenches, they built all of this stuff, tons of money. And World War II happens and the Germans adapted and they're like, hey ho, blitzkrieg. And they just went up and over and around. And we all kind of know how World War II had to end up playing out. So somehow Tim could make everything about the Maginot Line. I would tease him about it, I'd stub my toe and I was like, please tell me how this is about the Maginot Line. And there was this moment that day where I just cried thinking about somehow with all the tactics and the things that were happening with the way that the Capitol was fortified versus in the summer and all of these types of things, he would have made this somehow about the Maginot Line, or he would have had some other brilliant strategy, and it would have been this moment of kind of like knowing relief laughter, but also in the midst of processing everything that was going on with a really brilliant mind. And so I kind of missed both his brilliance and his love of the Republic, not of his opinion, but of the Republic, and not of what your favorite news pundit is saying, but his love of the Republic, as well as that nervous kind of knowing laughter that we could have shared that day. And Pam, we were talking earlier, there's always those kind of unexpected things that people do that day or that are kind of soothing and helpful? What was something that happened for you?
So, I certainly appreciated the people who reached out. I think people knew what a big part DC had played in both of our lives. But I had one person who wrote and just said, what would Jeff say about this day? And it reminded me how, his intellect and his open-mindedness not only balanced me, but it really balanced a lot of our friends and family, and that other people really missed having his sort of inside fair, you know, assessment of what was going on. And it meant a lot to know that other people really missed, you know, his smart brain.
Mhm. Yeah, I had something pretty similar, and then I'd add one other quick thing. Is that my family's pretty much a house divided on matters of this, and I had a sister that, and we're also a family that I don't think a lot of people have talked to me a lot about their grief over Tim, or what a tragic loss like that does to a family, you know. Um, and I had a sister say, "I'm really missing Tim today because he's a retired combat Marine, and both sides of the family would have really listened to him, just his personality, his intellect, his service." And I was really thankful that she was honest about that, that it wasn't just my loss, like the world really lost somebody with Tim. And um somehow that was comforting. I don't know how to advise other people to say that, but it was comforting. And then I would say that I have several friends, because I do, security and stabilization work around the world, that we're feeling a lot of confusion because we go to countries that have green zones and get militarized and have, big incidents happen. But we're kind of sent there to do something. Like we have a job, there's something to do. It felt very different to be kind of frozen on the couch, watching the news. And they reached out, and now we have a plan for the inauguration, and to be with people. And it won't be Tim, but it will be being with some brilliant, fair-minded folks that we can have conversations with and process with. And I think that, just thankful to them that they were honest about them having a hard time, but also having space for my grief. And I think that that's a hard thing for a lot of people to do. So thankful for that.
Yeah.
And I would say, yeah, if you see a big news event, reach out to a WID.
Yeah.
They're they're processing all their thoughts, and they're also processing all the goodness.
Yeah. And it does help to know that other people are missing their person as well. So don't ever be afraid to share that you miss their someone.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Mel.